The question is, Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter Nights? Which one? Well, the easy answer, of course, is both. They are both amazing digital implementations of Dungeons & Dragons, but there is a difference between the two. Partially playstyle, but also the type of adventures that you may like. Now, certainly, Baldur's Gate was the first incarnation. Neverwinter Nights is the second incarnation. We'll put an Icewind Dale to the side for a moment. The advanced Dungeons & Dragons rule set versus the D&D 3.5, really 3.0 rule set. They use two different D&D rule sets. And while certain magic items are going to be very familiar, certain character classes are going to be very familiar, how the characters level up, what they can do, different spell effects, it is a vastly different experience. You might have a preference between kind of Golden Age classic AD&D rules, or even though it's 3.5, that's kind of the genesis for what we have for D&D Modern right now, 5, 5.5, and 6. Neverwinter Nights is going to be a little bit more familiar if you're a modern or newer D&D player. If you're super old school, you'll feel right at home with AD&D. But between those two differences, for me, my opinion, and I love playing both of them, it's the aim of the game that is different. Neverwinter Nights was originally implemented as a way to play D&D virtual, a way to play it online. D&D at that point, just a sidebar and a little bit of history because it's important to framework. At that point, before D&D 3.0 came out, Dungeons & Dragons was on the ropes. It was pretty much on life support. TSR had pretty much fizzled it out. The AD&D second edition rule set was really bloated. Not a lot of people were playing it. And we had the rise of many other type of role-playing games to compete with it. A lot of people thought this D&D thing was done. And then with the acquisition of it to that other company and rolling out D&D 3.0, which quickly became 3.5 with a few tweaks, that gave us the D&D landscape that we have today. That put D&D back on the map and turned it pretty much mainstream for a variety of reasons, and that's outside of the scope of this vlog. But with that, the D&D game that we got, the idea was originally with Neverwinter Nights as a DM and a server, I would host my game, create my module with the toolkit, or run my game real time, and that's how players would play it. Rolling that out, though, how do you sell that? How do you distribute that? So the campaign, the game itself, the first campaign, that was an afterthought. It was just like, look, we can't just sell a tool set. We got to kind of demo what it does, and we got to include a game with it. So they created a module. They created that adventure, and that rolled it out. Now, since then, of course, we've got X packs and expansions and lots of really amazing community modules, some of them replaying the old classic modules, some creating their own modules. But from that perspective, that was the original aim of Neverwinter Nights. It never really quite worked out. Well, Fritz, there's still servers playing and going. Yes, absolutely. But marketing it towards video gamers, they have a different kind of outlook than, say, D&D players. So with Neverwinter Nights, what we have is a very powerful tool set that you can create your own adventures. It's very easy to download from various sources, new modules, new adventures, replay them. It's a massive, massive library. The first campaign, it's got a couple of stress points on it, but it's pretty solid. The second one and the third one, much, much better. Absolutely fantastic. Now compare that to Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate, although it's using the advanced Dungeons & Dragons rule set, that focus was, its inception was to deliver a role-playing, an RPG experience. Not multiplayer, although there is some multiplayer. Not something that is going to be module after module after module, but an epic, epic storyline going from BG1, later Siege, BG2, and Throne. The focus is vastly different. The story is vastly different. The breakdown in BG1 to BG2 and Throne is you're part of something much bigger than self. You're discovering yourself as a character, as a player, but you're also literally impacting the realm. It's very, very epic. And within that, The main difference for me between the two, and again, outside of the rule sets and stuff, is companions, NPCs, interactions. Now, in kind of classic D&D, you've got two sets of interactions, both NPCs. The first is, of course, merchants, travelers, information that you interact with along the way, kind of standard RPG stuff. But then there's the NPCs that join your party, usually controlled by the DM or maybe other characters playing in the group, and they grow with you. They become part of your party. You have interactions. Baldur's Gate does that really, really well. You find these NPCs, they level up with you. They have personalities. There's different interactions that you can have. I'm not going to give any spoilers along the way, but it really feels like you're part of a group impacting the realm. Comparing that to Neverwinter Nights, there are some modules where there are companions, and it does it very well. But most of the modules, and of course the original campaign, second and third, they're kind of an afterthought. They'll join you as a henchman. They'll follow you around. They'll do some stuff, but there's not a ton of interaction or really a feeling of like, I could just interchange them back and forth. For me, that is the biggest element of it, because the iteration of Baldur's Gate, the focus was as a role-playing game, where Neverwinter Nights was more of a tool set. Now, of course, Neverwinter Nights has those interactions and those rules. But in terms of circling back to the question, which one? Well, yes, both. But for now, I'd say start with the experience that you're looking for. Start with what you want to focus on. Do you want a classic multi-hour story with NPCs, would be Baldur's Gate, or do you kind of want the experience of, I'm an adventurer testing myself in the world? That's more of Neverwinter Nights, where you're playing different modules, you're playing different stories, you're playing different content, and seeing what your character class would do moving through that.